Writing this episode was almost the whole thing was a bit of a tribute to him. Take him running to deal with the traffic light, that was not scripted. That comptometer I had to fight for. You might see Lee in front of a group of people that you don't normally see him with. I'm glad they're getting more comfortable with each other, sort of no matter what time of day it seems to be. And who knows, maybe there'll be more in the future.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Heart Emotion Podcast. I'm so excited to welcome Liam Fearnley back to the podcast to talk about episode 8 this time of When Calls the Heart. Welcome back, Liam.
Thanks so much for having me, and so soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was when you mentioned that, you had written episode 6 and then went right back around did 8. I thought we've got to get you back on because these episodes do feel quite a bit different. And so I'm excited
Yeah,
to get your take on writing such a different dynamic in 2 different episodes. So thanks for joining me.
of course.
So you write, we've got the investigation moves along in this episode. We've got some really interesting dynamics between Edie and Lucas, but there's also a lot of fun in this episode. We get to see Rosemary back in her element. So I'm just curious, how much fun was it for you to write this episode?
Probably too much fun. I mean, Joy, our showrunner, she texted me at one point while I was writing it and was just checking in. And it was like, yeah, I'm not having a blast at all. Like, yeah, it was great. And I was able to, put in a bunch of, Easter eggs, and obviously there's a lot of humor. So it was probably one of the most fun I've had ever writing a script.
Well, we felt it on this side of it. So it was nice to see Hope Valley characters in a bit of a different element and to give Rosemary an opportunity to be right there in her lane. So, could you talk a little bit about some of those personal Easter eggs? Because I'm sure Hearties noticed a few, but I think it's just amazing that as writers, you get that opportunity to really put some of those special personal touches into an episode.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the obvious one is I threw my dad's name in there. But there were some smaller ones too, really for me, writing this episode was almost the whole thing was a bit of a tribute to him.
Yeah.
So when Rosemary says, for example, a dog wouldn't say that, that's actually in reference to one of my dad's favorite books that he gifted a lot of people in the film industry called A Martian Wouldn't Say That. It's a book about real life notes, kind of crazy notes that have been given over the years in the film industry that kind of don't make any sense because nobody would know like what a Martian would actually say.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really wanted to sort of put that in with Rosemary. I thought that was quite fun.
That's so amazing that you are able to have those opportunities and moments just to highlight the amazing work that your dad did and contributed on When Calls the Heart. So that's special. You
Yeah,
guys
it
have
was.
talked. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it was kind of the perfect episode to do those
Perfect.
things.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. You guys are so good as writers about talking about how, your name may be on there as the writer, but there is so much collaboration that goes on, whether it's writer to writer in the writer's room or, among the actors and the writers, the showrunner, or even the directors. Were there any like collaborations in this particular episode that really stood out to you?
Um, I mean, as you said, they're all very collaboratively created. We spend weeks as a room breaking each episode, and then we write the outlines together too. We all sort of take an act and write it. So, I obviously can't take credit for everything. But, this one was a real treat because for me, because how often do you get to make a movie within a movie, and
Yeah.
give all these characters different roles and different names? And so, yeah, it was, certainly took some things from the other writers, the fire investigation stuff and the like arson and legal jargon. We had some writers in the room that were much more adept at that than I am.
Hmm.
So I sort of threw that stuff to them
Yeah.
to sort of help me with the language. So yeah, when you've got four, five, six, seven people in the room, and everyone has different strengths, it definitely brings out more in each episode.
I love that. It's like no egos. It's let's all come together and tap into the strengths that each brings just to make the episode even more rich. So that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Were there specific conversations? And I know you guys, you start at the end, here's where we need to get to, and how are we going to get to? Were there certain like benchmarks or just like points, like, okay, episode 8, these are the things that we need to achieve to move certain storylines forward?
Um, Sort of, yeah. I mean, we knew obviously we had to advance the fire investigation. We couldn't just sit that one out for an episode.
Yeah.
So we've got, the revelation about the maps and the suspicious phone call. We knew that we wanted Lucas and Edie to come to a head a little bit before their sort of final 4 episode arc starts. So it was really nice to be able to weave all that stuff in to the A story, which was Rosemary. I think my original draft was like 10 pages too long because there was just so much material to get to. But we landed in a good spot. I'm happy with where it ended up.
Yeah, fantastic. So when you go through and you watch the dailies, I mean, you have it on paper, but when you watch the dailies, were there any moments that you're like, man, that popped, it did more than I even thought it would do?
Yeah, I mean, I was really anxious to see the silent film footage
Yeah.
because, well, all the stuff with the movie really, but those silent film snippets were just so different than anything we'd ever done before. And I was just thrilled just watching them on the dailies, even before the music, before the editing, everything. It was just so cool to watch. And a huge credit to the team, Kristin, Andrew, for getting that where it is. It was perfect.
When you write something like that, knowing, I talked with Ava Cooper, who said that some of that was like, let's just play it out and see how it goes and then figure out, how it feels. When you write that on paper and then you translate it to an actual silent film, I mean, what does that look like on paper as a writer? Is it more of the direction of this is what needs to happen? Or, I mean, are you literally writing out lines and things that they should say as well?
Yeah, all that dialogue was scripted. It was tricky that portion because in the outline it was very much sort of standard fare. Like Nathan and Elizabeth do this, Rosemary says cut, Nathan and Elizabeth do that. So I really had to sort of figure out in writing it like how does this work? How do all these pieces come together? So yeah, each there was like the action, and then there was a slug line that said the dialogue that was completely separate from how you'd normally write dialogue because it was a intertitle card.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a puzzle on the page, and then it was a puzzle in production, a different kind of puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it really looked well done.
It was fantastic and something new for When Calls the Heart. And the
Yeah.
fact that, you really got to bring your dad into it was just, I think, the icing on the cake. So it feels like this season we've had more opportunities to either hear a narration from Elizabeth, or more of that journal entry feel. Is that something that you guys really wanted to make intentional this season, or has it just played out that naturally some of that dialogue and moving the stories forward should come from Elizabeth?
Yeah, it's not really been intentional. We sort of take the journal entries sort of at an episode by episode basis and see if it makes sense.
Yeah.
For this one in particular, it sort of helped us. It was a little different than they normally are, and it helped us set the scene and allowed us to bounce around a bit in both locations and timeline, and so we could get all the information we needed about what the episode was going to be about and how Rosemary came to this idea. And then, of course, we think we're watching Elizabeth write her journal entry, but it's a little bit of a fake out because she's actually trying to write this story and has some writer's block.
Do you, as writers, sometimes, you said you have 10 extra pages than you need. Is it a trick of the trade to ever go, you know what, we're going to condense that by having Elizabeth say something and we can take those 10 pages and now it's X amount of lines in order to get where we need to go in the story? Is that,
We could do that. Yeah, that's we didn't do that here. This sort of opening narration was always about this length. Yeah, with the 10 pages, and most scripts come in long at
yeah,
the start anyways. It's just, yeah, the trick of the trade is figuring out what we don't need, and it's always sad, but
yeah.
it has to be done. We only have 42 minutes.
So you've got a great moment up front with Rosemary hearing Hickam and Lucas talk about the big poster, that amazing poster that's up on the wall, and Zorro and the way of the future. She says she's also wanting to build something. So all of a sudden, where Rosemary has kind of like been there for everybody else through the season so far and put her needs to the
Yeah.
side, and now it's like something just like triggers. What is it about that moment that just like really sparks her interest and gets her brain going again?
I think just the fact that she hears Mike and Lucas talking about how these pictures, the moving pictures, are the way of the future. They're going to be future classics. They're going to sort of stand the test of time. And that's sort of what Rosemary's always wanted with all of these endeavors that she does. So it's kind of like a next step continuation of her radio play from last season, and certainly from the opportunity from that film producer from years back.
Yeah.
So we wanted to sort of create it as this kind of aha moment for her to sort of spark this Rosemary revolution almost.
She goes immediately to Lee and tells him about her idea. And I think that's what we love so much about Rosemary and Lee is how much they support each other, how much Lee not tolerate, that's the wrong word, that he just really pushes her and encourages her to do those things that just like really bring a spark to her and loves the line, "There's my Rosie, welcome back." Can you talk about the timing in the season giving Rosemary this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we just touched on it a little, but they both lost a lot, in that fire, the park, the playhouse, and as you mentioned, she's been sort of tending to others' needs, to Gwen, to Lee and his issues, to the rest of the town. So it just felt, now that we're in episode 8, it felt like the right time to give Rosemary her moment and let her shine like only Rosemary can.
Only Rosemary, right?
Yeah.
Elizabeth pitches her ideas to Rosemary and Lee, and Opal walks in with her comptometer. Can you talk about the decision to include Opal in this production role? Because this was definitely a surprise and she nailed it.
She did great, and that comptometer I had to fight for because originally they were like, it's too big, it's too heavy, she can't carry it, it's going to be too clunky, but it worked really nicely.
Oh, it's
And,
fantastic.
and as for Opal, we haven't seen too much of her this season, so we really wanted to make sure we gave her a moment to shine. This kind of seemed like the perfect opportunity to see how much she's grown from this little kid that we all knew, and showcase her as this smart, no nonsense, not sassy producer that's helping Rosemary and Lee.
It was a wonderful opportunity to let her shine. And talking with Ava, I said, this really, in a way, opens up all sorts of new things for, what can happen with Opal next and even possibly what's to come in this season. So that was fun to watch her in that new role. I'm curious, like, she seems very knowledgeable as a producer, So where did all of this training come from? And I loved the line. I don't think it's that noticeable when she's in a herd talking about like where did this opal come from? So where is all of this training coming from with opal?
It's a good question. And you're right, she picked it up pretty quickly. You're right, it was nice to see a different side of her. And, for us, we just thought, kids are smart. They're usually way smarter than we give them credit for. So, this is a new sort of nascent industry and technology, and young people gravitate more quickly towards those things than their elders. So have at
She
it,
just
kid.
needed the opportunity, right? It was in her the
Yeah,
whole time.
exactly.
That was your line about her shining, like just being hidden in a herd.
No, actually, that one wasn't me. That appeared in the script after I submitted my first draft. So
It
we
was
can thank
good.
either Joy or David for that one.
It was great. It was good. There were so many great little lines in this episode. So, the dialogue in this episode is hysterical. Now that you've seen all of episode 8, how much of it would you say was on the paper versus improvised? Because we know often that there might be a bit of improvisation in an episode like this.
Uh, yeah, and I'm glad that everyone seems to be liking the humor. But I think pretty much all the dialogue that made it into the episode was scripted. Um, but there was a lot going on in the background, and it's credit to Kristin, the director, that wasn't in the script.
Yeah.
That bit with Hickam grabbing the old script from Rosemary and handing her the new one so she can give it to Elizabeth, that was not scripted. Hickam running to deal with the traffic light, that was not scripted. So there was all these moments that I was just delighted to see in the dailies that gave it so much more life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, you guys know the characters so well, but then for them to take it to that next level, and it doesn't detract from what you have on paper, but it just brings more life to it is always fun for, I imagine, for you to see and definitely for us to see
Oh
as
yeah,
fans. So,
absolutely.
can you talk about the idea to add that old time effect to the episode? I don't think that that's happened on One Calls the Heart before, right?
The intertitle cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just something that, those weren't in the outline either. So I just sort of put them in while I was writing it. Uh, and I'm very happy that people didn't balk at them when they saw them because you're right, they're not something we've done before. But I knew that since we were going to do them or do something similar with the silent movie stuff, well, what if I just sprinkle a couple others or a few others throughout the rest of the episode to make the whole thing kind of a piece,
Yeah.
and sort of push the narration forward a little bit in a unique way.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm happy that everyone really embraced them.
Now we see in pictures, we see these physical cards. What we saw on screen final episode, was that digital or was that shots of those cards?
No, what we saw on screen was digital, yeah, in
Okay,
post. But yeah, they would. We had the props because back in the day they would have actually filmed that, and
nice,
that would have
nice.
been your card. So it
Excellent.
added a
Love
little
it.
bit of realism. Another thing that I did not have in the script, but they just came up with, and it was perfect.
That level of excellence that those teams, whether it's the costumes, whether it's production, that they just, it's always so amazing to see how they latch onto that and just take it to that next level is always fantastic.
Absolutely.
We're getting used to, so we've got Nathan at the beginning shows up at Elizabeth's as she's trying to come up with ideas, and we're getting used to these like late night visits with them. Is this becoming their new thing?
It seems to be. I think it's happened in a couple episodes in a row now.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm glad they're getting more comfortable with each other, sort of no matter what time of day it seems to be. And who knows, maybe there'll be more in the future.
maybe. I mean, and maybe it's just a matter of, he's so busy with the investigation and all of that that these are the moments that they can grab. But it's been really nice to see that they have this little quiet time and knock on the door late at night, so it's fun.
Yeah, we've loved it.
You guys made the decision from the beginning. The silent film was going to be about the Mountie and the teacher, correct?
It took us a while actually to figure out what the silent film was going to be about.
Okay.
But it is true, as they say, write what you know. So doing that allowed us to sort of mirror a little bit of what's going on in the story and in the actual show, so that we could have Nathan sort of look at the story that Elizabeth wrote, a Mountie that gets the bad guy, returns a hero, and sort of feel a bit like he's failing at his job. Um, so yeah, it just sort of helped us sort of push that story along. And especially with Nathan, he's had some letdowns in this investigation. It just helped us move it along.
It was a nice little subtle touch that was fun to pick up on. I'm curious. She starts out as Molly. She becomes
Millie, yeah,
Millie. She
yeah.
becomes Octavia. The decision to go from, and there's fans that have wondered this. Okay, why did we change the name from Millie to Octavia? Do you have a story behind that?
In my mind, it was just Rosemary putting her sort of bold flair
Yeah.
on Elizabeth's script.
Just, it's still the same, just a few minor changes, right?
Exactly. And we all go through that as writers.
Absolutely. So you talked a little bit about Nathan and kind of where he's at as far as the investigation goes, a little bit of what he's struggling with. And he makes a comment to Elizabeth about investigations, feeling more about luck, being more about luck rather than prowess. So can we assume that Nathan, I mean, you've talked about that struggle. How big is that weighing on him right now? Hopefully, we're going to get some redemption in this, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we hope that. But especially over the last couple episodes, Christopher's now disappeared. The Transformer is because of that. Who knows where that is? So I think, yeah, he's had some losses.
Hmm.
That sort of coupled with what he's now read as Elizabeth's idea of success as a Mountie, he is struggling a little bit right now. Um, but fortunately, as we saw in the last scene, he's got Elizabeth there to sort of reassure him and to prop him up.
It's also interesting that there's a bit of that going on with Lucas and his role as a governor and some of the struggling that he's had. So it's kind of been interesting to watch both of them in that dynamic as well.
Yeah, I would say that, and yes, we've got still a third left of the season for them to sort of turn their luck around.
We're looking for it. So you've got, you talked about kind of tapping into some of the expertise on the writing team when it comes to the investigation, whether it's the maps and the cartouche, which was a brand new word for me that I got to look up, and even recognizing the compass rose. So who was behind that research? I know that a lot of times in a series like this, especially with the period drama, there is research that has to go into it. And you know that Hearties are going to be checking it out. So you got to have your A game on. But can you talk a little bit about that collaboration and bringing in that research part?
Yeah, those were all new words to me too. Cartouche, compass rose. I knew what a legend was, but I didn't know
Yeah,
much more
me
about a
too.
map.
Yeah.
So that was really just me Googling a lot and trying to figure out like how, because we knew we wanted Georgie to quickly notice that there was some familiarity with these maps. But we didn't really know what that was in the outlining process. So we just had to figure out, okay, what exactly could she notice? These are hand-drawn things for the most part. So yeah, it was that part of the maps was just a lot of Googling.
Well, and I love that it's Georgie that they're bringing in to kind of add her layer of expertise to the whole dynamic. And it's I love that Nathan and Bill are not intimidated by that, that they see that how big of an asset she is to this investigation.
Yeah.
That's been fun to watch, having play that part.
Yeah, and we've loved having her back on the show.
Absolutely. We've got another chance for Lucas to get a bit irritated as he sees the ladies and Edie talking to Fernando. It feels like, and I can think of a couple of instances, and we always wonder if these are callbacks or if it's just the way that, Main Street is set up. But we see Lucas catch them, and it looks very familiar to a moment where he sees early in an earlier season Elizabeth and Nathan talking, almost an identical look. Was that intentional, or is it, Lucas should be standing outside of the saloon? He's going to give a similar look. We're always wondering if those are intentional callbacks or not.
That one in particular was not intentional. I do know the moment you're referring to, but this particular moment just felt, I mean, we have a limited space, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
but it just felt right for this episode and for this moment and where we wanted to land Lucas and Edie at the end of the episode and how we wanted to get them there.
Hmm.
So it's more coincidental than anything.
He's got that look down. It was really good. So,
Yes, he does. He's got practice.
like, dude, you're misinterpreting. You're misinterpreting. Come on, right? As is what we're watching it. That's what should happen. That, it's part of the story. I love the line. It's like Ned is Flo's little, sitting on her shoulder, reminding her, like, do the right thing, but Florence is gonna be Florence. So, and he says, we don't get to know everything, my love. We've actually seen a preview coming up in episode 9 where it appears that she may actually be doing a little bit of her Florencing. Is that foreshadowing, or is that Ned just reminding Flo that she needs to stay in her lane?
That particular beat was not foreshadowing. Because I was writing this episode, I didn't have much to do with nine. So
Yeah.
it was sort of there once the episode was done. So yeah, that was just Florence being Florence.
Yeah. And we find out also in this episode that Molly becomes a nurse. That is, I love that. I love how Molly has been there. I mean, so many people are talking about what a great move to have Molly to be there to support in the infirmary. Can you talk about that decision? Because I remember even Joy talking last season at the end about ideas she had and that they were wanting to, she mentioned this at HFR, bring some more purpose to Molly.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about that decision to give her that role and how that's going to impact Faith moving forward?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we certainly saw in episode 7 that Faith is perhaps a little overworked. So that we were able to sort of, through these letters and through, minimal screen time, but still try to get the story across, have Molly trained up to be an official nurse. It definitely is going to help ease Faith's workload a bit. Hopefully she's now able to find a better work-life balance. Not that that was a phrase in 1922,
Yeah.
but
But it
yeah,
existed, I'm sure, right?
hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, that we were able to give Molly some bit of purpose was really something we wanted to do this season.
Yeah. And where is Jed? Is he still on the railroad tracks with the sheep?
He's still there. They're doing the jam one by one. Yes.
Nice. We get a bit of a confession, sort of, we'll call it a confession, when Georgie and Bill are doing their little bit of eavesdropping at the switchboard. Bill admits that he's done enough hunting. What can you tease about these two?
I'm very excited for those two. I think there's been instant chemistry between the two of them ever since Georgie returned in episode 6, and certainly from last season too. And there's just a great connection there, not just between the characters, but also between the actors. And they're both, the characters are at similar points in their careers and similar points in their lives, and so there's this familiarity as well because they have this shared history. So yeah, there's definitely more to come from those two as they feel each other out. And yeah, they were very fun to write for.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where that one goes as well. I got to be honest with you. I've always been a bit of a Bill and Molly fan. And so I still have that in the back of my mind, but I have
Okay.
loved the dynamic between Bill and Georgie as well. But I still have that a little bit of that what if in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I hear
and
that.
we saw a little bit of a glimpse of, that kind of eye look and all of that when he wasn't well after the fire. And I'm like, oh, I still see it a little bit, but I'm willing to give the other, an opportunity as well too. So, but
Well,
I love my girl Molly.
we'll have to go find Jed and his sheep and bring him back.
Come on. All right. So in the story, and we've talked about the silent film, but I want to go back to this moment. So the decision to have Apollo and Octavia or Nathan and Elizabeth fail in this moment. And then for them to be replaced by Fernando and Faith. Can you kind of walk us through that decision and how and that purpose in moving those stories forward?
Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth and Nathan, right from the beginning, they were always going to be the original cast and they were always going to get fired. That was never a question in our minds. And ultimately, Nathan has more important things to do anyways,
Yeah.
with the investigation. So that's probably for the best. And then we sort of just wanted to defy expectations with their replacements a little bit. And so we've got this, charming, charismatic character in Fernando that perhaps is looking he's looking to prove something since Edie just kind of squashed any hopes that he might have had. And then Faith, this was sort of just a lovely wild card that she turned out to be. And in Rosemary's words, she was undeniable.
And in a way, she got her Mountie that she's always
And
wanted,
she got her
right?
mounted. So we'll see if anything happens there.
So we can say that the Fernando thing, we're not calling it a triangle. We don't have to worry about that anymore.
Correct.
We'll take it. I mentioned early on that there were some fun little, just little bitty nuggets that dropped throughout the episode. We continue to be amazed at Hickham's hidden talents, and his Spanish this season has been fantastic. Is
Yeah.
he fluent in Spanish? Is this, can we just make that assumption now? Are we going to hear any more?
Well, I don't know if I'd say he's fluent, but when we saw what he could do in episode 6, we just had to throw him some more, especially
Love
because
it.
we've got Fernando there. And Mike is great at it. Or sorry,
Fantastic at it.
I meant Ben is
Ben,
great,
yeah,
but the
yeah.
wolf are.
That line where he yells out to Fernando, and it's almost like this like bromance of like, I see you, good job. And I'm like, that is Ben up and down, so
Yeah.
good. And I'm so glad that you guys, you recognized it a couple of episodes back and you're like, yeah, we got to bring it back. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Another one is we know that Pascal had an opportunity to share some of those things, those little bitty things about Rosemary. One of them, and a big one being her line, we it's like I always say.
Yeah.
And so we get another one. I feel like even Lee had one of those, if I'm not mistaken. He said something to that effect, but we get that back in this episode. Do you guys, when you hear that from Pascal at the beginning of the season and she's like, this is just one of Rosemary's trademarks, is it always like up on a board somewhere? It was like, okay, it's time to drop another one of these in.
I mean, yeah, she did come down to the writers' room at the beginning of the season and mention that. So I think it was in all of our heads. And I know it was in the last episode, and I think there was one in episode 5. So
There's been a
there,
few,
there's
yeah.
been a few. I don't know how many more there are this season off the top of my head. But yeah, it's fun when we get to put those kinds of character quirks in.
Yeah. We're paying attention, we're counting them. Another one that we noticed, which was just hysterical, so I'm curious if this was scripted or added, is when they decide that Octavia and Apollo are out, Nathan and Elizabeth are out, and you see May just like she lights up like, oh, it's time for Mike to shine, and she kind of hits him. Was that scripted? Because that was really funny.
No, that was not scripted. All that was in the script was Mike piping up. May wasn't even there. So yeah, that was a delight to see in the dailies.
So good, so funny. And then in your intertitle cards, is that what we're calling them?
Yeah,
You've got the word tenterhook.
yeah.
I know that's random, and why am I even asking about it? But I'm like going, tenterhook, where did that come from?
I really wanted to just put some old-timey dialogue and really make it as 1922 silent film as possible.
Yeah.
So tenterhook just felt to me like an ancient word that would have been there.
It was great. I'm like, how would you Google that? I need an old time word.
Or like, yeah, like I'm sitting on my hands or sitting on pins and needles waiting for you
Yeah.
to come back.
Yeah. Well, I Googled it to figure out what in the world tenterhook meant. I did do that. Uh, do we give you credit for when Fernando talks about the angry little senorita being Opal? Do we give you credit for that one?
Yeah. And I had to fight to keep that line in the script.
Oh,
'Cause-
it was great. It was great.
and I know there was a bit of confusion to who he was referring to.
She's a
Opal or
senorita, right?
Rosemary. Yeah, yes. There was a confusion. Maybe it was Rosemary, but it's definitely Opal.
Well, my limited Spanish, and I probably dropped out of Spanish twice, but I was like, I know a senorita and a senora, and in this case, it's
Yeah,
got to be Opal. So, and she definitely fit the part.
exactly. So that was fun.
I want to talk just a little bit more about Lucas and Edie. First of all, I love them, but in this episode, especially to watch that dynamic, even when Edie approaches Lucas and says, it's over, I promise you. And we see that struggle that Lucas is going through. So well played. I mean, the chemistry in that moment where it was like, oh gosh, this is really good. And even a different type of intimacy. But and then when he kind of pushes her away, she makes the big decision to leave and go to Union City. So what is going on in her mind that she feels that drastic of a move that she's got to get out of Hope Valley?
I mean, I don't know if she thinks she's leaving forever. She certainly didn't have much in the way of luggage on
Yeah.
her. And she still has her insurance dealings and all that stuff as well in Hope Valley. But, she's sort of put her heart on her sleeve, and her heart on the line, a couple times now. And I don't think she's necessarily the type of person to put her life on hold and wait for a man. So, given this opportunity that Georgie just presented her with, it was, I think, interesting enough and timely enough that given what just happened with Lucas, she decides to see where it's going to lead.
Yeah. Create a little bit of a distance for just a little bit. And yeah.
Yeah, we ended the triangle, quote unquote,
Yes,
but the complications are still there.
definitely. Hopefully they'll work that out. We've got a great ending scene with Nathan and Elizabeth. So, an opportunity for them to redeem themselves after the failure with the silent film. And the line, the story isn't over, not for the investigation, and certainly not for us. I think the Mountie gets the girl. Can we hope that things soon are going to turn around for Nathan professionally? And then, can you just talk about that ending scene and kind of bringing the two of them back together in that moment?
Yeah, I certainly hope that they're gonna, work some things out. We've only got 4 more episodes to go. And
Oh, let's not even talk about that.
and for Nathan, they don't have much at the moment that is super concrete, pun intended. But I think it was important to get the two of them together at the end of the episode after sort of what they had gone through in the movie and just sort of reassure themselves that they're solid and we can reassure the audience that they're solid. And, in a 3 act structure, we've got 1 act to go in this season.
Yeah.
So I would be looking forward to this final concluding act between the two of them.
Well, we've heard that we are not going to be disappointed multiple times, so we're
That
ready
is our
for
hope,
it.
yeah.
We've talked quite a bit about all of the different moments in episode 8. Do you have a favorite or something that really stands out to you as a highlight?
Just the silent film stuff. I mean, I was nervous about what it was going to look like. When we write something, we have an idea of what it's going to look like in our heads. And it doesn't often look like that. It could look better,
Yeah,
obviously, but this looked exactly like what I hoped it was going to look
love
like.
that.
So I was just over the moon, especially once the editing and the music and all of that was added. It was just delightful.
Hmm.
And I also really liked, and was a scene that took a while to get right, but I really liked the scene between Mike and Lucas. The
Oh,
sort
yeah.
of yeah, I had to rewrite that a bunch of different times. And I'm really happy with how it turned out.
It was a great moment. I love that, even Mike and Lucas, when he was like, and I'm talking about us, and Lucas is like, yeah, I got it. So good. And I love those friendships among the men that
Yeah.
and you guys have done that so many times this season. And I, just from what the various cast members have told us, that there is more to come even with some of that. So it's
Yep.
exciting. So that was definitely a highlight for many of us to see. And then know that Lucas responded to it and decided to
Yep.
make a move, right? So we'll see what kind of move he makes in the next episode. So, what can you tease for us going forward?
In episode 9, I
Sure.
haven't I haven't actually seen 9 yet, but Ali Devereaux wrote a beautiful script. It's really gonna pull at some heartstrings and draw on this rich history, this show that's been able to be on for 13 years and have all this history develop. So it's a real gem of an episode, even though I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But a fun thing that I don't think has been in any of the teasers yet that I really liked was that you might see Lee in front of a group of people that you don't normally see him with.
Interesting. Okay. Lee's had some fantastic moments this season. It's really been fun to see him in a lot of these new dynamics. I'm curious, and I didn't mention this one earlier. Fernando shows up with some yellow flowers. We've had
Hmm.
flowers teased more than one occasion. Were those just a prop because Fernando needed to hand the ladies a flower, or was that just another little hint that there's going to be something big coming with flowers?
Those were another thing that weren't in the script. Those surprised me on the dailies, so I have to give Kristin credit for that. But it was really a nice thing for him to do and to interact with the ladies with. But yeah,
Absolutely.
nothing teased or anything like that.
All right. Well, Liam, thanks so much for coming back, talking about episode 8. Like I said earlier, it's always fun for us to get those behind the scenes and, and we're always puzzle piecing. What can we put together? Where is it going? So thanks for giving us even a little bit of tease as to what's to come. And I'm definitely excited for episode 9. It feels very much like a different episode from episode 8. Both equally great, but just a different feeling. So it'll be fun to watch that as well.
Polar opposites, but yeah. Thanks so much for having
Polar
me.
ups. Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much. All right. And just want to remind everybody, if you guys are loving this content about When Calls the Heart, we're so thankful that the writers and our talent give us that time to learn more about these episodes and the series. And we know that we're already getting season 14. Be sure to share this with people, get the word out. I firmly believe the Hearties community is continuing to grow because of all of this amazing storytelling and the interactions that we have as a community. So, again, Liam, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, bye bye.
Take care.